Welcome back to the other side of 45 Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational and family trauma, completing my 50/50s by 50 list, and my life as a single empty nester. This is the holiday season, which gives most people an opportunity to spend time with family. Although I did not go back home with my daughters, I did speak with my family over the phone and via text. When I think about going back home to see family, that used to only include those on my mother's side of the family, even though both of my parents are from the same city. In fact, my father's sister, my aunt, lives in my mother's neighborhood. They have lived in the same neighborhood for over 30 years. My aunt must pass my mother's house to leave the neighborhood. Despite living in the same neighborhood, I really didn't get to know them that well. We rarely even spoke to them. When my paternal grandmother was alive, we saw her, but not often. Admittedly, she and her husband were alcoholics, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with mother not wanting us to visit. I refer to my grandmother's husband this way because we knew he was not our grandfather. We called him by his first name. We called actually both of them by their first names. Full disclosure, we also used to call mother by her first name, but she stopped that when we were young. I do not know what happened between mother and my father's family. I've asked mother and my aunt, and neither are willing to talk about it. I know my grandfather did not like my father. There's a picture somewhere in my grandmother's collection of pictures of my grandfather when mother told him that she and father had gotten married. My grandfather's head is lowered. He does not look happy. Mother shared the picture with us, but didn't tell us why my grandfather was upset. It could have been because they were pregnant with my sister and me. Yes, I am a twin. Yes, we are identical. My father was not a good father. I know very little about my father. He spent most of my life addicted to drugs and in and out of jail. I can count on him. I could, count on him to show up every 5 years or so. Well, at least after his mother passed away. Before her death, we didn't see him much, but it was more than every 5 years. This is the story of mother and father's breakup, according to mother. Father had visited California when he served in the military and loved it. When he left the military, the army, he wanted to make California home for his young family. The plan was to leave me and my sisters with my grandparents, and the two of them would go to California to get things settled and then come back for us. The problem was, as I stated earlier, my grandfather did not like my father. Father didn't want to tell my grandfather the plan, so he and mother decided to leave in the middle of the night while everyone was asleep. The night of the great departure, my mother had cold feet and decided she could not leave her 3 small children in the middle of the night with her parents. So father left without mother to find a job and a home in California. He was supposed to return and bring his family to California when things were ready. That did not happen. Mother and father divorced, and she was a single parent raising 3 children until she met and married my stepfather. My father's visits were few and far between. I remember when father returned from California when I was about maybe 5, and he taught us to ride a bike. He was in good shape. He ran next to us as we learned to balance on the 2 wheels. My interactions with his side of the family was also rare. I recall when my sister and I were having our maybe 4th or 5th birthday, My grandmother, who was an excellent cook, baked me and my sister these cute little Raggedy Ann birthday cakes. We each received this huge Raggedy Ann cake. And there's a picture of us with our cakes. My cousins on both sides of the family attended the party. I don't think that happened again after that day. My father's mother tried hard to make up for her son's absence in our life. I remember the few times we were allowed to spend the weekend with her, and she would apologize for her son's absence. I never blamed her. I loved her. Now that I'm an adult, I understand more how she must have felt. And Father would call us, make promises that were never kept. One year, he told us that he sent us winter coats and some other things, and he had them sent to my aunt's house, my maternal grandmother's sister. But we never received them. We were young and naive, and for years, he would bring this story up, and he convinced us that my aunt took them. It wasn't until we got a little older that my aunt reasoned with us. She said, "Why would your father send the coats to my house? Why wouldn't he send it to his mother's house, your house, your grandmother's house, or his sister's house? Also, why would I not give them to you? I can't wear them." Because we were children and she was my grandmother's sister. Father told us many lies. And as we got older, we learned not to question him and just let him talk. Once we hung up the phone, we would brush it off as just more lies. His mother did what she could, but like I said, she was an alcoholic, but also a diabetic. She was a great cook, and when we were allowed to visit, she would make us anything we asked. But we were kids, so the only thing we asked for was hamburgers, French fries, and homemade chocolate milkshakes. And she would make us the best hamburgers. They were humongous because we were very young. They were really, really big hamburgers. And the milkshakes were super thick and delicious. They were homemade. I remember she would take a big thing of chocolate ice cream, put a little milk in, and she would beat it until it was semi-drinkable through a straw. We would get brain freeze trying to drink that thick milkshake through a straw. The problem was she drank so much and that she would get distracted. And oftentimes we would fall asleep before the meal was done. And she would actually have to wake us up just to eat. The best thing about these visits, other than the great food, was we were able to see our cousins. Despite my cousins living in my neighborhood, it took a visit to our grandmother's house to see each other. I envy the relationship my cousins had with our grandmother. For one, they called her grandma and spent lots of time with her. She would hug and kiss them. It seemed like a great relationship, one that she did not share with my sister and me. My father's mother would let us also, during Christmas, my father's mother would let us order toys out of that big Christmas toy book. And she told us we can get anything we wanted. Now, she didn't always get us what we asked for, because if you tell a kid you can get anything you want, we ask for a lot. But she always did get us something. But her home was not really kid-friendly. I mean, there were inappropriate statues of people in sexual positions, plaques with sexual innuendos, and porn magazines. I know this because they were easily accessible to us as children. But we knew not to tell Mother of the things we found in that house. Her husband worked for the SPCA and loved animals. And he would gift us kittens or a dog that he thought we would like. And I'm so happy Mother would let us keep some of them. At my father's mother's house, they had a cat named Charlie. He was orange. He was so mean. A St. Bernard named Gigi. And this bird that I hated, that darn bird. I, to this day, don't like birds, because of my father's mother's bird. Like, I cannot stand birds to this day because of that bird. My father's mother would get mother's permission to pick us up to see my cousins play t-ball. On the way to the game, she would stop and get us anything we wanted to eat. I remember one game we were eating chips. They were hot, but not too hot. And we were eating chips in the stands while we watched my cousin's game. Like I said, she tried really hard to have a relationship with us, but mother did not make it easy for her. And as we grew older, the relationship with my father's mother, it didn't deepen. We saw her less and less. Months would pass before we would visit her. Before graduating from high school, I visited her, inviting her to the graduation. But she said she was too sick to attend. Soon after we graduated, she passed away. My father's sister didn't call us to tell us she passed away. It actually was a friend of the family who had heard. I remember racing over to her house. Friends and family were there comforting her husband. I looked at his face. He nor I said a word. He just shook his head, confirming what I had been told. I felt so guilty because I didn't try harder to have a relationship with her. I knew she wanted a closer relationship with us. She wasn't perfect, but she loved us. And I could have tried harder. Actually, I could have just tried because I didn't try. In fact, if I'm being honest, I didn't feel like my father's side of the family were family. Yes, my father's grandmother tried, but there were no family dinner invitation, no barbecues, no outings. No one ever asked us about school. My father had a brother I never even met. I don't even know his name. I should say I don't remember his name. I remember father telling us his name, but I just don't remember it because they never talked about him. My father's sister had a daughter that we didn't find out about until years after she had her, even though she lived in our neighborhood. And of course, they didn't attend my high school graduation. There were just these few encounters. I had more encounters with friends. When my children were small and visiting mother, they met father. The children were playing in mother's front yard. Like I said, you can't get to my father's sister's house without passing mother's house. So the children were playing. My stepfather was outside with them, and my father passed by on his way to his sister's house. He stopped, realizing that the children that he saw must be mine and or my sister's. So he went back. He walked up to the children and introduced himself as their grandfather. Now, if you're a parent, you know that a strange man introducing himself to 3 and 4-year-olds as their grandfather would not go over well with them. So my sweet little preschooler said, "You are not my grandfather," and pointed to the only grandfather they have ever known, my stepfather, and she said to him, "That's my grandfather." My stepfather quickly went over to the group to control the situation. Mother called to tell me what happened. I just couldn't even believe he would do that. Later, father called to do his 5-year checkup and retold the story as it was told to me. He was disappointed that the children would not accept that he was their grandfather. I know, delusional. I had to break into him. He was only their grandfather biologically, but their grandfather was in fact my stepfather, and there was nothing that would be done to change that. Now, I know that hurt his feelings, but we had a conversation, one in which I had to talk to him like the adult he was. And I wasn't going to allow him to do to my children what he did to me. Showing up when it was convenient to him, when it was convenient for him, to make promises that he had no intentions of honoring. I explained the children had a grandfather that showed up and stayed, who kept promises and loved them. He agreed, but he promised to change. I heard from him a few times after this. Each time he called, he continued to make promises. And I asked him to stop. Guess old habits die hard. I explained this to him. I said, look, I'm an adult with children. At the time I was divorced. And I told him, I said, lying to me is no longer necessary because I don't believe anything you say. The last lie he told me was that he was coming to Atlanta to visit, and he asked me to pick him up from the airport. I agreed, knowing he was lying. It was just easier. Not only did he not come to Atlanta to visit, I never heard from him again. I don't remember the year. I do know the children were still in elementary school, so we're talking, I know it was around 2010 or 2011. Father passed away in 2016, I believe. I actually thought it was 2017, but when I went back to check, I'm pretty sure it was 2016. Anyway, again, my father's sister did not contact me. I found out via text from mother. It simply said, Jerome Brown is dead. I was at work when I received that text. I later got more information from father's sister. He was found deceased in his home in California. He had been there a few days before his body was discovered. At the time, I had just lost my coworker when father passed away. So I was really emotional and sad. I reached out to my father's sister and we talked. We had a real conversation. And I vowed that I would change that relationship. In 2016, the children were 16 and 15. They had never met father's sister, her children, or her children's children. My aunt's children. So I knew my cousins, my first cousins, but they also had children, and I had never met them. That was sad. I didn't want that to be our story. Father was gone. Father's mother was gone. But the family still had a chance to be family. I didn't know how to develop a relationship with them. It was a little awkward, actually. I decided to start with just a text and a card during the holidays. And that's what I did. I sent my father's sister a card on every major holiday. Then we started sharing pictures of the children with each other, her children, her grandchildren. She even sent me pictures of father when he was young, pictures of father's mother, my grandmother. I have those pictures in my home now. And I wouldn't have those pictures had I not reached out and continued to do so. She sent both girls graduation gifts. I sent her Mother's Day gifts and Christmas gifts. Then last year, Thanksgiving, 2020, she met my youngest daughter and my nephew for the first time. They went back to South Carolina to visit, and I asked them to stop at her house with a gift that I sent for her. My nephew and my youngest daughter, my oldest didn't travel with them last year, met their aunt and cousins. My father's sister was having a Thanksgiving dinner with her family, which included her 3 children, all of which I actually have met in my life. I want to make sure that's clear. And their children. Now, I haven't met their children. So at this Thanksgiving dinner, at my father's sister Thanksgiving dinner, it's her husband, her 3 children, and all of their children, so her grandchildren. So my youngest daughter and my nephew met their family. They got to know their family. Guess what? They found out that they were attending the same college as their cousins because they're the same age. I knew they were about the same age because by this point in 2020, my father's sister had shared some information with me about her grandkids. So I knew they were about the same age. I knew that. So they're attending the same college as their cousins, just on different campuses because we live in Atlanta and they don't. So they live in different part of Georgia. So they go to satellite campuses. So the kids all exchange contact information, and my father's sister texts me a thank you for the gifts. Not just the one I sent her for Christmas, but the gift she received when she opened the door and met her niece and nephew for the first time. Now, she has yet to see my oldest, but she will. Now that we are in each other's lives, we will be family. We are family. Now, I've added my father's sister's children to my greeting card list. So I send my cousins greeting cards on major holidays. I've yet to hear from my cousins, but I'm hopeful. It took over 40 years. It took over 40 years. I had to say that twice because that's a long time. But I finally have a relationship with my father's sister, my aunt, my family. So when I go back to South Carolina to visit family, she's on the list of the family that I will visit. She and mother may never get over whatever it was that caused the rift. But I can say it stopped with me. And I'm looking forward to seeing my cousins again and meeting all my little cousins. It took someone, me, to decide to break that family curse, and my aunt to let go of the past and look forward to the future. So when I look at my text message from my aunt, I'm grateful that she's in my life. I can't keep feeling guilty about not trying with my father's mother. But as the great Mary J. Blige says in the theme song of My Life Just Fine, I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night. At a time in my life, ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. Meet me on the other side of 45's podcast, blog, YouTube, and Instagram. New episodes will be released every Monday. And don't forget to head over to the other side of 45's YouTube channel for my first Vlogmas. 25 days of videos beginning this Wednesday, December 1st.